All right, we're back, and let's check out some climate news here. This article here, found this on What's Up With That. This is a letter, and I want to read this letter, guys. This is important. I think this speaks for the majority. I'm not going to read all the signatures, but you can see there is a long list of signatures here. But this is crucial, and this is probably a letter. I couldn't have drawn it up any better myself. I wish I could have come up with this, because I've been thinking about for a long time, what would you say to the president or any political leader right now if they had an impact on helping you get something across? And I think this is appropriate. A letter sent to President Trump supports Dr. Will Happer, has dozens of supporters. Dear President Trump, the undersigned organizations and individuals write to express our strong support for the proposed President's Commission on Climate Security. It is our understanding that this commission, which is being planned and would be directed by Dr. William Happer of the National Security Council staff, is currently being considered by your senior White House staff and relevant cabinet secretaries and agency heads. The commission would consist of a small number of distinguished experts on climate-related science and national security. It would be charged with conducting an independent, high-level review of the Fourth National Climate Assessment and other official reports relating to the climate and its implications for national security. Its deliberations would be subject to the transparency requirement of the Federal Advisory Committees Act. In our view, an independent review of these reports is long overdue. Serious problems and shortcomings have been raised repeatedly in the past by highly qualified scientists, only to be ignored or dismissed by federal agencies in charge of producing the reports. And we continue to read on. It says, among major issues that have been raised that we hope the commission will scrutinize, the models used have assumed climate sensitivities to CO2 concentrations significantly higher than recent research warrants. The models used have predicted much more warming than has actually occurred. Predictions of the negative impacts of global warming have been made based on implausible high-end emission scenarios. The positive impacts of warming have been ignored or minimized, and surface temperature data sets have been manipulated to show more rapid warming than has actually occurred. An underlying issue that we hope the commission will also address is fact that so many of the scientific claims made in these reports and by many climate scientists are not falsifiable, but that is, they cannot be tested by the scientific method. The conclusions and predictions by these reports are biased for proposed energy policies that could cost trillions. Given the magnitude of the potential cost involved, we think that taking the insular process of official consensus science on trust, as has been the case for the past 3 decades, is negligent and imprudent. In contrast, major engineering projects are regularly subjected to the most rigorous and exhaustive adversarial review. We suggest that climate science requires at least the same level of scrutiny as the engineering employed in building a bridge or a new airplane. Now, this letter continues on. I'm going to read the last part of this. Mr. President, you have made a number of comments in the recent years expressing doubts about global warming consensus. Many of the signers of this letter have been similarly skeptical. Without prejudging the results, we think that a review of climate science produced by an independent, high-level commission would be a fair test for your views and ours. Either it would provide a sound basis for revising your reviews, or it would confirm your views and confound your critics. For these reasons, we urge you to create, by executive order, for this President's Commission on Climate Security. Thank you for considering our views. And the list goes on of signatures here that have signed this letter. PhDs, presidents, CEOs of corporations, studies all over the world, mainly the United States. Look, and I'm going to talk about this too, because we have another article here. I'm going to go out of bounds real quick and talk about this Michael Mann situation too. But here's the bottom line. If you're telling the truth about global warming, then why are people like Michael Mann and others trying to put a block on this review? why would you worry about what this review would reveal if you're telling the truth? That's the number one concern for me. Why are you so worried about a review? And it's like these people are enraged about this. Like, how dare you review climate science? Dr. Willie Soon, Michael Mann thinks President Trump's new climate advisory panel is equivalent to UNESCO's murderous efforts to suppress genetics. Donald Trump is using Stalinist tactics to discredit climate science, according to Michael Mann. Nice. A panel to promote an alternative explanation for climate change would be disastrous, he says. Yet that's what the White House officials want. Americans should not be fooled by the Stalinist tactics being used by the White House to try to discredit the findings of mainstream climate science. Trump administration has already purged information about climate change from government websites, gagged federal experts, and attempted to end funding for climate change programs. There you have it, folks. Somebody finally admits it. This is what it's all about. President Trump is attempting to end all funding for climate change programs. Why? Because he sees it as a waste. He doesn't believe there is a consensus on this. He doesn't think that man is completely responsible for all of this. Why is it these people are scared of this panel? Let's read on. The panel will consist of scientists who do not accept the overwhelming scientific evidence that rising levels of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in the atmosphere are behind climate change and its impacts, says you. The creation of the new panel of the climate change deniers. There we go. Again, we don't deny climate change. We deny man-made climate change. We know it's natural. We know it happens in cycles. And just because we had a really bad hurricane last season doesn't mean we're in a climate change. Because last I checked, in the climate of the Gulf and the East Coast and Florida, they get hurricanes every summer. And especially in September. So that's not climate change. That's just a severe hurricane with lots of strength. So anyway. Okay, so Michael Mann's mad. We go on to read here, Dr. Willie Soon. There are some differences between Lyncensko and Will Happer. Lyncensko didn't just criticize his opponents. He had his opponents executed or had them deported to socialist death camps. As far as I know, President Trump doesn't plan to allow Will Happer to execute anyone, though some people might suffer acute public embarrassment when he finds the mistakes in their works. ClimateGate is full of climate scientists expressing outrage at having their work reviewed and discussing strategies to evade freedom of information requests for data and method, but sums of money expected for addressing climate change crisis, billions, even trillions of dollars, in my opinion, make opposition to review utterly unacceptable. And again, I just don't understand why Bozo the Clown, and thank you, Mari, by the way, this is brilliant.
You're welcome.
Why are you guys trying to block this review panel? Like I said, if they were telling the truth about man-made global warming and what causes it, they would actually say, yes, do this review. We know what we're talking about. This review will prove it once and for all. Do it. But these AGW people are not saying that. Instead, they're accusing Trump of wanting to execute the opposition. Guys, read between the lines. Michael Mann is saying that Trump is executing the opposition. What does that really mean? Trump is cutting off their livelihoods with this climate change review panel. That's the execution. Their money's going to go away. All that grant money, $2.5 billion a year of grant money. And the countless taxes that we pay for carbon. That's gone. So if that's gone, how are they going to pay their bills? How are they going to put gas in their SUVs? How are they going to pay their mansion electric bill and their food bill? Huh? The grant money's gone. There's your execution. Killed their livelihoods. So when you hear Michael Mann accusing Trump of being someone who's going to execute people, I'm not taking it in a literal sense. I'm taking it as read between the lines. I'm being cryptic here. If this money goes away, there's a lot of people out there who are going to have a huge change in their lifestyle, big time. They might actually have to go out and go get jobs again. I know, crazy talk, right? All right. So, UK carbon emissions down 6 years in a row. This guy says, I find these figures a little hard to believe. The UK's carbon dioxide emissions fell for the 6th year in a row. Last year, the longest continuous run of reductions on record, analysts suggest. Emissions fell to 361 million tons and their lowest level since 1888, when the first Football League match was played and Jack the Ripper stalked London streets, excluding years with major strike action. You know, the analysts found emissions were down 39% on 1990 levels, the baseline for year for carbon pollution cuts. This, to me, is surprising. No one's talking about this. The U.S. was down 2%. It looks here, carbon brief estimate emissions were down 1.5% in 2017, largely the result of continued decline in the use of coal for electricity generation, with little change in oil or gas use. Newly released figures from the Business and Energy Department show only 6% of UK electricity supplies came from coal in 2018. Bravo. Bravo. I wish they would tell us where the rest of that. It must be natural gas and oil where we're getting the rest of the heat and energy from. But again, where I was going with this, you know, the United States was down 2.3% for their carbon emissions in 2017. And here we have a report that 1.5% down carbon emissions in the UK 2017. So where am I going with this? It's down. And if it's up or down, it doesn't matter how many percentages it is. Trust me, this is significant. Now, compared to what man emits into the atmosphere, which is 0.000043, I think, or maybe I went too far. Maybe there's only 2 zeros in front of it. But very little emissions affecting that 1.5%. Okay. And we're talking about them being down again in 18. They continue to go down. And I know people experienced a little brief warm-up in Europe this year due to, what do you call it? Just the luck of the draw for them this year. We really thought we were going to see some colder conditions continue. A few things happened in the atmosphere that changed. And we saw a heat wave over there, really. I mean, for that time of year, it was literally a heat wave. But that doesn't mean we're global warming. It was just a phenomenon. It was a weekly anomaly. A couple weeks out of the ordinary weather. That's what it is. It's just weather. And this suggests, too, that, okay, so if we're losing carbon dioxide emissions in the atmosphere, then why did it get hot in the middle of February? You know? Like, doesn't anybody ever think about stuff like that? Like, why, you know, CO2 is down in the U.S., I guess people are saying, well, it was colder this winter. Oh, okay, sure, maybe. But, you know, I'm looking at all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, there's so much information out here for us to read that talks about carbon and its role in the climate and what it really does. And then we see the stats like this, and it's like people don't want to believe it. It's like, oh, it's truth. Man-made emissions are going down, but yet NOAA and other organizations are saying our temperatures are going up because of humans, when in fact man-made carbon emissions are going down. How does that add up? What's with all the smoke and mirrors, AGW? Again, if you're telling the truth about what causes climate change, why are so many people who are with the global warming crowd, why are they trying to block this commission? Why? Because they're hiding something. The lid is about to blow off, folks. And let's say this. Anybody, and I may be unveiling a strategy that maybe they can just bail out, but I'm telling you right now, if the Democrats seriously run their campaigns in 2020 on climate change, this is going to be a cakewalk. You're basically re-electing Donald Trump right now, is what I'm saying. Because I think as we get closer to 2020, I think this committee that's going to review the climate report is going to show some very, very gross manipulations of the numbers, cooking the books. They're going to show that the rate of the warming was not happening as fast as they predicted or are saying. The numbers are going to show different. Look, the TSM solar observations over there in the UK was the first to point it out to me that the numbers that we see for El Nino measurements aren't correct. They're being manipulated, and he has the proof. And I think that's just the tip of the iceberg, no pun intended, but that's only the beginning of the corruption and the cooking of the books just to scam some money. And guys, don't think greed is evil. Greed is very evil. And once they seen how easy it was to pull taxes from, hardworking Americans who fell for the lie of man-made global change. No. I tell you guys, this time of our lives and this committee is so important right now that it could save American taxpayers trillions of dollars if we can blow the lid off of this and confirm once and for all that the people who do not believe in man-made global warming are not climate change deniers. They're whistleblowers of how climate really works. They're whistleblowers on the trillions of dollars that's been made off of taxpayers for false claims. They're whistleblowers to remind people that the sun drives the climate and that climate change is natural and it happens in cycles. That's it. Leave the link in the description on the article. You guys can check it out for yourself. And I have to bring up one more time, Cyclone, the death toll. They're not reporting this correctly, guys. This is weather.com. This is kind of like a sort of an update. Some rescues. More than 900 people were rescued Wednesday from trees and rooftops. Tens of thousands continue to await rescue as floodwaters begin to recede. Tens of thousands. The death toll has climbed to more than 550 in Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Malawi. Aid workers are rushing to get food and water and medicine to victims. So, some mixed numbers. Some of the alternative news sites were already saying 1,000. I believe that maybe some of these death tolls that we've been receiving were because of so many people missing. Again, they talk about it down here. Again, Mozambique president said earlier this week that 1,000 people may have been killed. Although they're saying hundreds have been killed, the president may have overspoke it. So right now, let's just say we're between 500 and 1,000 deaths at this point. But the recovery is far from over. If there's 10,000 people left to be rescued, then I'm pretty sure we have a missing person situation like no other right now as well. And just another result of the power of these cyclones when the ingredients are right for the picking here. And this cyclone definitely was intensifying, died down and intensified again, and just came in as a force. Very early in the year, but we've already seen some impressive storms. And actually, I did see another thing. I forgot to throw the link in as well tonight, but there's a situation in Australia where I believe we're facing 2 cyclones at that part of the continent. So at each side, I believe. So some very interesting news creeping up in the Pacific. We will try to stay updated on that as well. And guys, stay tuned. We'll be right back.